Hi, I'm Sarah Maffey-Holland, and this is Man vs. Land, a segment intended to educate the public on various home and landowner topics, as discussed with guests who are experts in those fields. Today, we have Lindsay Webb, who is the Landowner Relations Coordinator, and Conservation Officer John Demler with the New Hampshire Fish and Game. Thank you guys for joining us.
Oh,
Thanks for having us.
So before we start, I just want to mention that the show does not constitute any legal advice and is for educational purposes only. We're always available to field any questions, and you can please message us on Facebook at Man vs. Land NH. So today, with regards to landowner issues, it is hunting season, which always brings up a lot of topics with the homeowners as far as what they can allow or should allow on their land. What types of questions do you get from homeowners with regards to that?
One of the first questions I get with homeowners is how close can a hunter be to an occupied dwelling?
Okay.
And no one can discharge a firearm or a bow and arrow within 300 feet of a permanently occupied dwelling. So they need to stay at least that far away from you.
Okay. And how about access to someone's property? Are hunters or fishermen or ATVers allowed on a property without landowner permission? Do they need permission?
Okay, so in New Hampshire we have a common law which basically says that land is open for public access for things like hunting or hiking unless it's posted. So it's almost like a reverse posting. So people are allowed to be on your property unless it's posted that they can't be on the property. Now, this does not refer to ATVs or snowmobiles. This is hiking, walking, hunting.
Okay. And if you do happen to post your land, are you able to allow those things for certain individuals?
Yes.
Yeah, it's important to remember because people get concerned. They want to post their land because they don't want everyone on it, but they do want to allow some of their friends to hunt it. So ultimately, it's your land. If you decide to post it to exclude the public, you can still give permission to an individual to come in and hunt. And that's something that hunters also should remember, is that even though a piece of land is posted, that it's all right for them to ask the landowner if they would mind if they were to come on and hunt, because sometimes people have it posted just to keep everyone out, but they are looking for somebody to come in and do some hunting on their property.
Okay, and is there a specific way that a landowner would go about posting their land? Are there certain requirements for doing so?
There's a prescribed manner of posting. And what's important to remember in the state of New Hampshire is even though a landowner may not follow the prescribed manner of posting, if he's made a reasonable attempt to post his property from trespass or from people coming onto it, that's still what holds. But the prescribed manner indicates you're supposed to have signs at least 300 feet. They can't be any further than that. They have to be clearly visible. There's a couple of other things in regards to lettering. Has to be 2 inches to describe the activities they're prohibiting. And then also any barways or gates also have to be clearly posted with that no trespass sign or no hunting sign.
Okay. And any other questions that you commonly get from landowners?
Well, something related to that is a lot of landowners are looking at putting up safety zone signs.
Okay.
And safety zone signs is a great way to let hunters and others that are out in the woods know that they're coming toward a house. And the Fish and Game Department will provide safety zone signs free to landowners as long as they agree to leave part of their lands open for hunting. And so you can get all that information on our website and sign up for the program.
And the website is wildnh.com?
Yes.
Great. As far as you mentioned ATVs and snowmobiles, and as far as land use for that, how does that differ from hunting?
There's a significant difference because hunting is clearly less of an impact in regards to an individual walking through your property. It doesn't really create too many issues usually. However, if somebody's on a dirt bike or a four-wheeler, then obviously there's noise, there's impact right on the ground where the tires are hitting, and it can throw up rocks and put big ruts through your property. So in New Hampshire, in order to operate what we call an OHRV, an off-highway recreational vehicle, you have to have written permission from the landowner if you're outside of your own property. So anywhere you want to go, basically in the state of New Hampshire, you're going to stay on your own property or go onto a legal trail system, which there aren't all that many. We have Ride the Wilds up north, and there's some other trails throughout the state. But if you decide just to ride through your neighbor's backyards, you're probably breaking the law, and it's not encouraged at all. It's actually, you're going to get caught and have some violations to deal with.
Are there specific times of year in which the trail systems are open for snowmobiling or for ATVing?
There are, and you basically, if you go to ridenh.com, that'll bring you to the OHRV website, and they have all the trail openings and closings throughout the state, because sometimes they change, especially depending on weather conditions. Generally, the spring is closed for dirt bikes and four-wheelers because the trails are so muddy, it would do damage to them in the long run.
Okay.
But then, obviously, snowmobile riding's in the winter, and then the other trails hopefully are open during the summer to be able to ride four-wheelers and dirt bikes.
Great. Fishing. And when we think about land use and recreating on someone else's property, we don't necessarily think too much about fishing.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Pemmy River that comes right down through Plymouth, and it's accessed most often by private land. So you would go through the same process of getting landowner permission in order to access that and fish from there?
We encourage all fishermen and hunters to ask permission to landowners before they step foot on private property. That being said, I'm sure there's a lot of fishing holes where people just kind of know about it and they step down. And so, and that's fine as long as they respect the land. We really want people to pick up their trash, pick up other people's trash if you see it, and don't cut any trees. That is a violation. So respect the land, and that access will be open for everybody.
The resource that you have online on wildnh.com is for both sportsmen and for landowners. Mm-hmm. Do you happen to have any events or courses or any material for the landowner to pick up in order to know that they're doing the right thing?
Sure, yeah. On our website, we have a great frequently asked question webpage that'll have a lot of information, a lot of this information that we talked about today, and a lot more. And other information about our sign program where you can pick up those free signs. We also have a great handout that was an article that was written in one of our recent Wildlife Journal magazines. It's called Why We Hunt. And that'll give you a great kind of flavor of why people go out and hunt. The tradition, the camaraderie, for food, local food. So it's a great resource for people that don't know anything about hunting to kind of learn a little bit more about it.
That's great. And for hunters or other sportsmen, is there material available for them as well?
Exactly, yep. There's pamphlets about how to say thank you to the landowner, which we always try to get hunters to do at the end of the season. And a lot of, just respecting the land. Great.
Any other questions that you get from landowners or from hunters, sportsmen, with regards to use?
Certainly. What happens a lot during hunting season is a landowner who owns a large enough parcel of land decides to go out on a walk and he finds a tree stand, a hunting tree stand somewhere on his property or on their property. So there's questions that come into play, and really the legal way to put up a tree stand in the state of New Hampshire is with a permit for the landowner. So if you're going to put some sort of permanent structure up, if you're going to do any damage to a tree or cut any limbs, like Lindsay had talked about, you have to have landowner permission to do that. So we have permits the Fish and Game Department can provide, or a simple written letter from the landowner. But if you're going to use, there's modern tree stands now that they call climbing stands, or a stand that leans against a tree and you can secure with straps that you don't actually screw into a tree. Anything that doesn't damage a tree is allowed to be on the property of another. So that's what we encourage, as we talked about before. We encourage a hunter to talk with the landowner first, because sometimes it's a surprise if you're out, if you decide to go out for a walk in your back 40 and you see a tree stand that you had no idea was there. Right. Landowners get upset, and that's where there can be some bad blood between hunters and landowners. So It's a tremendous resource to be able to hunt anywhere in the state of New Hampshire that's not posted. But again, it's kind of a responsibility to a sportsman to make sure that they inform the landowners that you're going to put up a tree stand or something along those lines.
Yeah, it just seems like good practice in order to talk with the landowner. And that brings up another question. If you harvest an animal and they happen to just wander onto somebody else's property where it's not intended and you have to go find it, then you would want to contact the landowner as well. Certainly. And let them know.
it does happen. If you're hunting deer or bear, and you are able to shoot the animal and then it moves along, it doesn't expire right away. Sometimes it does cross onto posted property. Obviously, you should know where you're hunting, and if you're close to a line of somebody's property that is posted, maybe you find a different place to set in for the day. But if it does cross onto posted property, it is posted regardless of whether or not the animal that you shot moved on to that property. So the best bet is to get right in touch with the Fish and Game Department or even a local police department to try and get a hold of the landowner. And that way we can come out or talk to the landowner and make sure that it's all right for you to go onto the property and continue to search for that animal.
Great. And trapping, how does that play in similar, speak with the landowner in order to access the waterways for trapping, if that's what you're doing?
Yeah, so all trapping has to be done with a permit through the landowner.
Yep.
So what you do ahead of time is before trapping season, most of the experienced trappers have their set lines out. They know where they're going to place their traps, and they'll get permission. It's a small permit form that they fill out with the landowner, granting them permission to be on the property and set traps. Because something that is important in trapping is that you're liable for whatever your traps catch. So it's important, whoever's land you're putting a trap on, to understand that the traps are in a safe location where they're not going to have incidental catches of domestic animals, or they're not going to be too close to somewhere that they're not supposed to be. So that's why the permitting process is pretty important, so that landowners know that there's traps out there and they can kind of exclude areas, or just say, I'm sorry, I have a dog, I don't want you to put your traps in my backyard type deal.
Great, that's good information. Other questions that you get?
Yeah, another topic that comes up a lot is land that's in current use, and whether or not you can post it or you have to keep it open.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
So if you have your land in current use in the basic current use program, you actually do not need to leave your land open for recreation. But if you have the current use with the additional recreational discount, and that'll say right on your tax card, if you don't know, you can go down to your town office. Okay. That if you have that additional recreational discount, you have to allow 6 forms of recreation. Hunting is one of them. It's hunting, skiing, fishing, snowshoeing, nature observation. So that's excluding ATVs, OHRVs. You can
anything that causes
that.
Any type of damage.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and we'll have another guest on from New Hampshire, or UNH Extension Service, that's going to talk a little bit more in depth about current use. So that's a great segue for that. Yeah, I think the takeaway is to just communicate with your landowner, let them know that you're there, just have an open relationship. I think that's probably the best way to go to avoid any issues. Anything else that they may ask? Any other topics?
I think as a landowner, some people have a fear of keeping their land open. They assume that they're going to incur liability if somebody's injured on their property. So one thing the state of New Hampshire has is protections against that. Basically, if your land is open for use and somebody comes in and there is an incident where they hurt themselves, you're not at fault for that unless there is a serious danger that you don't disclose. If you have like an old well or something along those lines, that you would have to mark that in order to exclude yourself from being liable for that. But if you just have general property that's open, you're not responsible for the actions of somebody that's on your property. So it's really encouraged. It's very unique actually to New England to have open land the way that we do. Most of the other parts of the country, you have to have permission from a landowner, and it turns almost into a business for a lot of people. If you go out west to do hunting, some serious hunters go all over the country, and they're paying money to go onto somebody's land to hunt, which is not, that's not the way that we do it in New England, and especially not in New Hampshire. So it's very unique, and it's an important balance that we have with the tradition of hunting and trapping in New Hampshire, is to try and keep land open so that everyone can use it.
Yeah, and that's very nice considering 70% of our land is all privately held. Right. So that's a lot of our state and a lot of our resources. So it's really great to have that relationship. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Really appreciate it. Again, Lindsay Webb, the landowner relations coordinator for the New Hampshire Fish and Game, and John Demler, conservation officer who is local to the Plymouth area. So thank you guys for coming. You can visit them online at wildnewhampshire.com, and you can visit us on Facebook at Man versus Land NH. Thanks, guys, for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.